Well, thank you, Frank and Lloyd and Keenan and Sarah, for inviting us today. So I'm representing the Threadflip team. My name is Anand. Jeff and Ronak are from Threadflip are here as well. So shout out to you guys. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Anand. I work on product and engineering at Threadflip, and I've been with the company for about 2 years now, and it's been a really fun ride. I was trying to squeeze out of Lloyd earlier, like exactly what customer number we were, but he wouldn't tell us. But he says we were top 10. That's good enough for us. He says we were top 10. I'm pretty excited about that. A little about Threadflip. So we're an online marketplace for women's clothing and accessories. Check us out at threadflip.com, where you can download our app. And I'll tell you a little bit more about us. So we're about 2 years old at this point, and we're a little over 1 million users. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our team. This is our team. Lloyd knows what this is about. So let me tell you a little backstory about this picture that I have up here. So for those of you who know about First Round Capital and their holiday videos, this is a screenshot from the holiday video that First Round Capital did last year. And the theme was, what does the fox say? Except I think they morphed it and say, what does the unicorn say? So right in the middle is our CEO, Monik, dressed as a unicorn with Sid, the palm that he's holding. It was really, really awkward. And I think the line was, things are moving up and to the right, and some are already moving to the right, as you can tell. So it was an awkward kind of stance. Anyhow, these videos are hilarious. Check them out. First Round Capital does a great job. But we're about 37 people big. Back when I think Keenan and Lloyd, maybe just Keenan actually came over to do the integration back in our offices that were on 3rd and King. It was a small loft. I think we were just barely about 10 or 12 people big. And we've grown, excuse me, we've grown quite a bit since then. And the beautiful part is that actually, almost everyone on the team is now trained on Looker. Almost everyone uses Looker. You could look around. Actually, at one point, I think Sarah was over yesterday, and I think I looked over. No pun intended. I'm going to use the word look a lot today. We literally looked over around the conference room, and everyone had Looker up on the screen. It was really interesting. Anyhow, so what is Threadflip, and what problem were we trying to solve? And I can probably share a personal anecdote here. So I remember at one point, my wife had bought these really expensive boots from Nordstrom.com for $300. And she didn't wear them at all. They were sitting in our closet. And they were just sitting there for a very, very long period of time. And eventually, it came down to the point of me having a conversation with her about what she was going to do with these pair of boots, because, they were just sitting there. And I'm sure a lot of you resonate with this story, whether you're male or female. And this is the problem we set out to solve, because there's a lot of solutions about how you can get rid of these things, but none of them are easy, right? And that's what Threadflip is trying to solve, a solution where you can get rid of your excess inventory in an easy and convenient manner, and that's what Threadflip is trying to do for you. So how exactly does this work? We have 2 ways in which you can sell your stuff if you want to sell your stuff on Threadflip. You can essentially take photos of your items using our app and list them for yourself, and you can essentially and sell them that way. Or you can order a kit, which will show up at your doorstep, put all your stuff into a kit, send it over to Threadflip, and we'll do the work of selling it for you. So you can do it yourself. That's a self-serve model. Or you can sell it using our consignment model. That's the 2 ways to sell. In the self-serve model, we take a 20% commission. And in the full service model, we take approximately a 30% commission. 2 easy ways to sell. So what's happened since then? Since approximately 2 years ago that the product is launched, and I think Keenan first came to our office and all this other good stuff, right? Several millions of dollars have been paid out to people who have been selling on Threadflip. And these are just some of the top sellers who've made a lot of money selling on Threadflip. And it's really funny. I was trying to tell the story to Sarah, who came over yesterday, and trying to explain kind of how we've grown as a platform. And it's really interesting. Some of the anecdotes we've heard is that our users will be really disappointed if Threadflip went away tomorrow, because they really rely on Threadflip to make a living. this is a legitimate platform for them to rely on. And if it were to go away tomorrow, they'd be really disappointed. And initially, what we used to do is we used to make a lot of our decisions on what to build and what to do based on our gut. And now we have to rely on data because we're such a mature platform. We just can't rely on what we think we need to do. We have to look at the data to make mature decisions. So we've come a really long way since where we were. And anyhow, some of those avatars that you see are avatars of some of our top sellers, Caroline to Jessica, my trinkets, so on and so forth. And yeah, they've contributed millions and millions of dollars into the ecosystem. They made a lot of money. A little about our stack. So we've got web and mobile apps, iOS, Android, and MDOT. And we've essentially got a Rails stack going. Our web front end is built on Backbone. We've got native apps, and our MDOT site is basically a Chaplin app, for those of you interested. So what I'd like to do for the next few slides is kind of tell you about kind of before and after scenarios, how we used to do things before Looker and how we do things after Looker. And some interesting anecdotes of how things have evolved. So Jeff is back there. He'll probably resonate with a lot of this. Maybe he'll cry a little bit. Hopefully not. So one of the things that we do even today is this thing we call daily reports. And these go out at roughly midnight every night. And what we try to capture, and I'm sure for those of you, how many of you here do e-commerce companies? Could you raise your hands, please? Commerce shops, Jeff raises his hand. So a few of you here are from commerce shops, so I'm sure you can resonate with this. What we do is a summary of what's happened the previous day. So things like, how much did you do in sales? How many users did you acquire? How many transactions happened the previous day? Things of that nature. So here's a snapshot of my inbox. I just literally searched for the word daily stats. And I have to apologize in advance, by the way. The interesting thing, or maybe not so interesting thing, is that I had to obfuscate a lot of the data, right? This is the weird part about these presentations, by the way. So you'll notice that a lot of things are kind of snipped out. But I searched for the word daily stats in my inbox, and dating back to around the Christmas time frame or the holiday time frame of 2012, early 2013. And we sent out this daily report, and this daily report essentially aggregates a lot of information about pertinent stats that we want to share with the rest of the company and the rest of the team. A lot of these threads end up with Monik, our CEO, sending an email about, WTF, what happened yesterday, or something like that. Some of them do, at least. Some of them are like, really good, oh great, here you go. But this is really painful because it had to aggregate a lot of data from different disparate data sources, and it was really painful for us to do back in the day. And if I had to drill into one of these emails, and again, I apologize because I had to obfuscate a lot of the actual data that we will look at, but this is kind of what it looked like, right? This is the exact data that you got to see in the email in itself. We had to pull data from different disparate data sources, and we had to write a script that actually pulled this information, sent this email out to everyone in the company. And now what we do is we just use Looker to do that. And we have a dashboard setup that does this. I happened to capture a screenshot right before Looker loaded the data in the dashboard. It's not that Looker's not actually loading the data or anything, but I did it right before Looker loaded the data. But we have a dashboard set up that Looker that we use to look at this data. And for those of us who actually want to do a daily report, we actually have reports set up that we get emailed out. And for pedantic people like myself, and Colin and I shared a moment about this when he came over to the office last week, or a few weeks ago rather. You can, and I'm sorry, this may not look very clear, but they have a beautiful responsive version. So I can look at this on my phone whenever I'm on the go. So I can look at all the daily stats when I'm on the go as well. So one way in which we use when we use Looker is just diagnostics reporting and daily stats on how the company is doing. Merchandising. That's Leslie up there, by the way. She does merchandising for us. So one of the things, this is way back in the day, and Jeff and I, Jeff's our CTO and co-founder, by the way. Jeff and I used to do this a lot. Is Leslie used to come to us and ask us, what happened yesterday? Aside from the sales that happened, what sold? What specifically sold? What categories sold? What type of brand actually sold yesterday? And what worked? What didn't work? So what we used to do is we used to write SQL queries. Does this look familiar to some of you, right? So write SQL queries, and this is just a screenshot, by the way, of one of many probably queries that you probably wrote. And we used to extract the data, put it into a Google spreadsheet, and then she used to do the work of analyzing data herself. As you can imagine, this is not a very repeatable chore, very, very painful, and very, very error prone. took about 15 minutes, I think, probably every time we used to do this. A lot of human dependency and very error prone. What Leslie does today is, she does this. She's got a query set up. She's got a bookmark. She does this in about 5 to 10 seconds. She's got a bookmark set up. She can run a query herself, and she can just create her own pie chart on what happened yesterday. So this is a query I think she ran on a couple of days ago. And she can tell that, for example, 7% of the sales that happened yesterday were of Coach bags, or Coach, rather. Moving along, merchandising is a big part of what we do. A feature that we have is a thing called trunk shows. Some of you may be familiar with this. It's basically an ability for our sellers and buyers to kind of congregate online and sell and buy from each other. But much like any other marketplace, we don't want to have the empty room problem. We want to seed the marketplace. We want to seed it with content. So we give Carrie the ability to use Looker and say, all right, why don't you go find content that you can put into the trunk show before people get there? So she writes a Looker query, and she goes, all right, let me find all the Chanel bags that we want to put into this trunk show. She writes a query. She says, find me all the Chanel bags that need to go into this Chanel trunk show today. That's what that looks like. Use case number 3. We've hired Tiffany, who's our head of growth. She's amazing. And I think Annika, who's here today, will agree that Tiffany is ramped up on Looker and LookML very, very quickly. And what we've kind of empowered Tiffany to do is basically create, is use drive tables to set up, make sure that we're actually spending appropriately, not making sure that we're spending on things like CPI or cost per install, but spending on return on ad spend. So we can look at, are our users contributing on what we call gross merchandise value? Are our users actually contributing on a true basis, right? So she can create LTV charts, lifetime value charts. So Tiffany went in and she basically merged a couple of tables, and she figured out if our users are actually contributing on a true basis, and she can figure out which channels are actually truly profitable for us. So she modified our LookML, and she made sure that we can actually figure out what channels are truly profitable for us. So another way in which Looker has been truly, truly, truly helpful in helping make sure that we're actually acquiring really valuable customers for us. This segues into another thing that it's been personally helpful for me a lot, and Sarah and I bonded about this a little bit yesterday. The thing that I like to do is I call stalking. So I like to stalk some of our top users. I want to make sure that when they join, that they have a really good experience on the site. And again, I'm sorry I had to cut out some of their personal details because I don't want to tell you who I'm stalking and what I'm doing when I stalk them. But what I'm doing here is there's certain users that I want to make sure that they have a good experience when they join the site. So I make sure, so this is a report. So Looker lets me set up these alerts and in a timely fashion that when they do certain things on the site or the app, that I get alerted and I know what they've done. And if they've done certain things, that I can take action on it to make sure that we follow up. And for those of you who are curious about how our data is set up, and Jeff is here as well, by the way, you're welcome to chat with me, him or I afterwards. But this is kind of how our data is set up across the board, right? We attribute our users very, very well. So we can find out if a user's clicked on an email and come back to our site or app, and we'll know exactly how they came back. And so we're able to find out if a user's come back and has performed a certain action and why they came back. And if they're held up for a certain reason, we'll know why. And this helps me find out how we can help them move on to the next step. And I'll kind of leave it at that. So this next thing is kind of interesting, and I think you'll appreciate this a little bit, especially given the audience and the demographic. So this is kind of how we've been using Looker, and many of you probably have this set up today. And this kind of goes back to kind of how I tee things up. A lot of you probably are familiar with Mixpanel, which is an analytic solution which does really good event tracking and funnel analysis. And everyone's familiar with Google Analytics. And of course, you're here because you know what Looker is. So we use Looker to look at the data from our database, which is Postgres-based. We also use Mixpanel and Google Analytics. And what we've been trying to do is there's just several different disparate data systems out there today. What we wanted to do is we wanted to move a lot of the data that was in Mixpanel and a lot of data that was in Google Analytics into this system called Redshift, which is a petabyte scale warehousing solution that's provided by Amazon. it would basically ensure that we didn't have these different disparate data systems, and it would make sure that we didn't have to jump across different set of hoops, and we could just basically rely on one tool, which is Looker, to get all our data and to make sure that everything was in one place. By the way, Carol is what this is titled. One of our engineers called this entire solution Carol. Jeff, I'm going to probably stumble on this, so you're going to have to help me. Centralized analytics, reporting, and event logging. All right, thumbs up is what I got. Awesome acronyms. So what we do now is we pump a lot of our events into Redshift, and we use Looker to analyze all the events that are going into Redshift, and we use and of course we have all our transactional information that goes into Postgres, we're going to consult with Colin a little bit more to make sure that we're able to truly analyze funnels across both Redshift and Postgres in a very meaningful fashion. So this took us about a couple of weeks to set up. We're happy to talk to you a little bit more about this. I was telling Sarah about this as well. I mentioned that we've done this from this to a few different product people at a first round capital meetup a couple of weeks ago, and they were blown away. They think that this is the way to go, and everyone feels like this is, and I'm going to evangelize this for as long as I can, because I think you're really kind of, please do this, right? Please do that. And I'll tell you why, because it just makes life a lot simpler. You don't have to, because you lose a lot of data if you're in disparate systems. You just get hamstrung by a different set of solutions. Anyhow, I'll tell you what's happened, right? For example, what you see here on your left is basically search terms that Google Analytics kind of holds hostage, right? And we didn't know, for example, which users had searched for these search terms. And now what we have on the right is the exact same search terms that we have now saved in Redshift that we can query using Looker. But the good news is that we're able to query exactly which users these were, and which of them actually added these, went to a product description page and actually added them to cart, checked out, and all that good stuff, because we have all this information in Redshift and we have it in Postgres, and we're able to create that entire funnel ourselves. So. Yeah, please do this. It's really cool. All right. So there's several different use cases that I've described here today. It's been extremely beneficial for us to move and to be using Looker here. And I want to end with this note that I sent to, and I hope you can read this, but I sent this note to Keenan and Ben and Lloyd. I want to say several months ago. I don't know if you guys can read this, but it says, I just had to say, some days I wake up and I think, I don't know what I would do without Looker. Thank you for all you do, and great job. So, thank you. Then, just your week, that's it? No, but thank you. They've really made a huge impact, and not just me, but the entire company, and I'm pretty sure I speak for them. It's been a phenomenal solution, so thank you guys for that. And I'm being very genuine when I say that. And yeah, if you guys are not using Looker already, you should. And so with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions you guys may have about Threadflip, about how we use Looker or anything else. And Jeff is here as well, so we can answer any questions you might have about how we've integrated and we use Looker today. Sorry. So the question is, how did we move Google Analytics into Looker?
No, can you just repeat it?
How do you move Google Analytics into Looker?
We have the question saved 3 times now. You can do it a 4th time.
Very important question.
Yeah, it's a really important question. So we didn't actually move it over. What we've done is we've started tracking these events as they happen. So for example, page views is a big part of what we used Google Analytics for. And we started tracking that in Redshift. And then we used Looker to start consuming that within Looker. But I believe there's another solution, and I keep blanking on the name, and Keenan can probably tell you what it is. But I believe there's another solution that you can use. Snowplow. Snowcloud? Snowplow, sorry. Snowplow, okay. Snowplow is a solution that you can use to import Google Analytics or use to look at Google Analytics data using Looker. But what we did is, we said, all right, let's just, and just pull all the information into Redshift and just use one source of truth. And it's been a huge difference maker. I'm just obsessed and just use Looker all day. Any other questions? Cool. I know there's drinks and food and all that good stuff, but thank you for having us. And we're around if you have any more questions. But if not, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Thank you so much.